Hello Divi Nation and welcome. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how to design a standout work experience section for your Freelancer site with Divi. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start off by adding a brand new page. So I'm going to come over here to pages, click on add new, and we're just going to call our page Standout. Click on use the Divi builder, and then we're going to go straight into the visual builder. Right, so what we need to do here is to add a single column and then add our text module. So I'm going to click this plus button here, add our single column, and then I'm going to search for my text module. Select it. And then over here, there's two tabs. There's the visual and there's also the text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to text some HTML code in the text tab because we want to predefine our headers before we continue with our designs. So I'm just going to paste it like that. So here we can see, in fact, I'll just go through this HTML with you. So as you can see, we have the H2 tags already defined and also the H3 tags, and then the rest is the paragraph text, which is great. So the next thing we want to do now is to go into the design tab and adjust our text sizes. So I'm going to click on text, making sure your text color is set to dark. I'm going to change my font. So I'm going to click here. And the font we're going to use is Source Sans Pro. So I'm going to select it here, and then I'm going to change my text size to 16. Great. Now we need to adjust our heading text. So I'm going to scroll down here, click on heading text. So we're going to start off with heading 2. So I'm going to click here on the tab, and then for the font, I'm going to choose Akivo Narrow. Okay, so I'm going to select my font here, Akivo Narrow. On the font weight, we're going to set this to bold, all caps, and then we're going to change the size to 24. And the final part here is to change our text color. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to paste my hexadecimal value in here. Now, if you want to use the exact same settings that I am using in today's tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below so you can go and get those specific values. Okay, let's move on to heading 3. So I'm going to come over here on the tab, click on H3, and our default font here, we're going to change it to Julius Sans 1. Okay, I'm going to select it. We're going to come over here to our font weight, set that to bold, and then over here it's all caps anyways, which is great. And then for our text size, I'm going to set it to 62. And then finally, I'm going to come over here and add my heading 3 text color, paste it in here. Okay, so that's all we need to do for now. I'm going to go ahead now and save. And the next thing we're going to do now is to go into our row settings. So I'm going to click this gear icon here to enter my row settings like that. So we need to make our row full width. So I'm going to come over here to design, click on sizing, make this row full width. I'm going to select yes. I'm going to come over here to custom width, and we're going to set this to 1245 pixels like that. And then I'm going to come over here and select use gutter width, and I'm going to set this to 1. Now, the reason why we use the gutter width is just to make sure that everything does not leave any gaps on the sides as we design. Okay, so let's go ahead and save. Now, next we need to create our work experience timeline. And to do that, we need to add a brand new row. So I'm going to click this plus button here, and I'm going to choose this option here for our columns. Okay, so normally we would start adding our modules, but before we do that, what we need to do is to copy the style of this row and add it to the new row that we've just created. And the quick way to do that is just to right click over here, copy style, and then come over here to the bottom, right click and paste the style. Great. Now, just to remind you, the style was to create a custom width and also to reduce the padding. Right, so let's go ahead and add our first module. So I'm going to click this plus button here and add a blurb. So we're going to start by adding our content. So this is going to be like the year 2001 to 2003. And then next we need to add our content information. So I'm just going to paste it here in the content area like that. And then next we need to use an icon. So we need to come over here to image an icon and click on yes. And then we need to choose our icon. So I'm just going to scroll here. And this is the icon that we're going to use. So I'm going to select it. Now let's go ahead and customize all this. So I'm going to come over here to the design tab, and I'm going to start with my image and icon, and we are going to change the color. So I'm going to click here and paste my hexadecimal value for my color. Next, I'm going to click on circle icon and then choose yes. Now we can see that this doesn't look very clear. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the color of our circle. So I'm going to come over here and just make sure that this is set to white like that. Next, we are going to add a border to this. So I'm going to click on yes to show circle border. Click here and paste our color like that. Now notice that my color for my border is the same as the icon. So it's very important that you match those two. Now let's go ahead and click on image and icon placement. So what we want to do here is just to make sure this is set to the left for our design to work. Now we want to make our icon slightly bigger. So in order for us to do that, we need to click on use icon font size, and then we're going to set this to about 40 like that. Now it's time to adjust our font colors and our fonts. So I'm going to start off with the title font. So I'm going to select here, and I'm going to change my font from default to Archivo Narrow. Select that, set it to semi-bold. Text size, I'm going to set this to 24, and then I'm going to set the line height to 60 pixels. Now it's time to adjust our body text. So I'm going to come over here to body text, change this to Source Sans Pro. So here I'm going to search for it, select it, and the final thing here is just to change the size to 16. Now let's adjust our margins. So I'm going to come over here to spacing. So we're going to start off by adding negative margins. So I'm going to click here and add -30. And -30 to the left. Okay, so let's go over here to the custom padding. So for padding right, we're going to add 30, and then we're going to add 40 to the padding bottom. Right, so what we need to do next is to add a border over here to the right of this as our design element. So I'm going to come over here to border. I'm going to choose the right one and set this to about 2 pixels. And then add my color. So I'm going to paste my hexadecimal value like that. And now we can see, and again, this color here of this line is the same color as our icon. So we just need to make sure that we keep that consistency going on throughout our design. So this is looking good so far. So now I'm going to go ahead and save. So this is the time now to duplicate our module several times, because this is going to be our timeline. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to do this a few times like that. And then all you got to do is to come over here and change the years. Right, so what we need to do here is to add a few more to the second column. So here we just need 4 over here to the left. And then in our second timeline here, we just need 3. So here we can see we have the line that separates these 2 columns, but we don't need the line over here on the right of the second column. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our module settings, click on design, border, and we are going to get rid of this border right here. So I'm just going to make sure that this is set to 0, click on save, and then we're going to clone this 2 more times. Great. So now you can see that our timeline is looking solid. Now we need to add the left border to our row in order to attach the blurb icons in the first row. To do that, we need to update the row settings as follows. So I'm just going to go into the row settings here and click on design. So I'm going to come over here to border, click on our left border, which is this one right here. I'm going to set this to 2 pixels like that. So now we can see that our timeline has now been joined. Okay, so if I remove that, you can see there's no line. And then as soon as I add it, you can see now that we have our timeline working. But you just need to make sure that this is set to 2 pixels and also the color is right. So we need to make sure we're also using the right color. So I'm going to come over here to left border color and paste my hexadecimal value like that. Great. So now our timeline is joined. Okay, so the next thing is to adjust our row settings. So I'm going to come over here and add a bit of padding. So I'm just going to search here for custom padding. In fact, it's right here as spacing. So for our custom padding, I'm going to add 28 to the top and 0 to the bottom. Now, since our icons are extending past the left border of our row, we need to add a single line of custom CSS to make sure the rest of the icon is visible. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on Advanced, Custom CSS, and on the main element, we're just going to paste this CSS code like that. Now, in order for us to hide the left borderline next to the last blurb in the first column, we need to give that blurb module a white background color. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to save here for now, And then I'm going to click here to go into my blurb settings, click on background, and then we're going to change this color to white like that. I'm just going to go ahead and save. And then over here, I'm going to remove this line. So I'm going to come over here to my module settings, click on design, border, and then we're going to get rid of this right border like that. So now we can see that our timeline is looking perfect and we don't have any extended lines which are unnecessary on this side. Now it's time to add the overlap circle counter. So first we need to save, and then we're going to come over here and add our circle counter. So I'm going to search for it, select it. So the first thing we're going to do is to add the number, which is 60. Now we need to make sure the percentage sign is off. So I'm going to click on elements, and then I'm going to set this to off. Now let's go to the design tab and customize this. So I'm going to click on design. So I'm going to click on circle here and change my bar color. So right now you see we have this color here which doesn't match what we're designing so far. So I'm going to go in here and paste my hexadecimal value for my color. Next, I'm going to come over here to text and we're going to set this to light because we don't want this to be showing on our design. Next, we're going to come over here to sizing and set our size. So we're going to set our width to 350 pixels. And then we're just going to make sure that this is also centered. And then next, we're going to add a custom margin of -2 pixels to the left. So I'm going to come over here to spacing and add my -2 pixels. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be overlapping these and showing different figures right here in the circle. So in order for us to do this easily, I'm just going to save this, and then I'm going to come over here to expand settings and click on our wireframe view. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because it just makes it much easier for me to see where I'm working. So I'm just going to duplicate this 3 times. Okay, like that. Okay, so now let's go into this into the second circle counter. So I'm going to click here on the module settings, change my number here to 80. Okay, so now it's time to add our bar background color. So I'm going to click on design, circle, and then I'm going to paste my color in here like that. So I know we can't see it now, but whenever you want to go in and see what you're doing, all you got to do is to click on view. So now we can see our circles. But right now, of course, we haven't added our negative margins to overlap these. So that's going to be coming up soon. So just for now, we're just going to add all our values in, and then we're going to finalize with that. Okay, great. So I'm going to go back into my wireframe view. So the next thing I'm going to do here is to come to sizing, and I'm going to set this to 330. Okay, so next I'm going to come over here to my spacing and add our negative margin. So our negative margin is going to be -338, like that. Now let's take a quick look and see if this is working. So I'm going to click here on my desktop view, and now we can see that our top circle and our second circle are working well together. So what we need to do next now is to add all our figures here for the rest of the circles and add our negative margins. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go back over here to my wireframe view and then save this for now and then move on to my third circle. So here I'm going to change my number to 70, click on design, circle. I'm going to change my color by clicking here and pasting my hexadecimal value like that. And then my width is going to be set to 310. So I'm going to come over here to sizing, change this to 310. And then for my custom margin, I'm going to set this to -318. So I'm going to click here on spacing, and then I'm going to add -318. I'm just going to double check because I'm curious. So I'm just going to click here on my desktop view just to see if it's working. Great, so that's looking fine. Now we're left with one more circle. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on my wireframe view and then save this for now. Move on to our last circle counter. I'm going to change my value here to 90. Move on to the design tab. So I'm going to click on circle, change my bar background color, paste it in here like that. For our text, we're going to make sure now from light, we're going to turn this into dark so that we can have our title showing. Now let's customize our width. So I'm going to come over here to sizing. I'm going to set this to 290. And then I'm going to set my custom margin at -298. And then I'm going to add 80 pixels to the bottom. Now let's take a look at the results. So I'm going to click on my desktop view, and that is looking great. So now the next stage is to add a list of skills which corresponds to the colors that we have in the circle here. Now the best way to do that is by using a blurb module. So I'm just going to go back here to my wireframe view and click this plus button here to add my blurb module like that. So we're going to give it a title of JavaScript like that. So I'm going to come over here to image and icon. I'm going to say yes. So the icon that we need is a square icon, and it's this one right here. I'm going to select it. Now it's time to go to the desktop view to see what we're designing. So you can see here that it's nice and big, but we are going to customize it to make it fit our size. So next we're going to come over here to our design tab and click on image and icon, change our color to match the colors in the circles. So I'm going to paste my color in here like that. For the placement, I'm going to make sure that it's placed to the left. Great, so that's looking nice so far. Now it's time to go to the title font. So instead of having it on default, I'm going to choose Archivo Narrow. The font weight needs to be set to bold. And now the text size, I'm going to set this to 24. Finally, we're going to add our text color, and then we're going to add our line height. Okay, so that's our text color. And for our line height, I'm going to set this to 1.4. So you can see here that our color here for JavaScript has matched one of the circles here. Now it's time to add our custom margin. So I'm going to come over here to spacing, and we're going to add a custom margin of 37% left like that. So now it's nice and it seems like it's centered. So every time we view this in different views, we are going to see that it's going to be all centered, which is great. Okay, so what you need to do next is to clone this and then change the titles and also the colors. Okay, so once you've added all your titles, this should look like this. So as you can see here, everything is corresponding to the circles that we have above here. Okay, so now to finalize this, we need to add a bit of design to our section. So let's come over here to our section settings, click on design, and we are going to add a divider. So I'm going to click on dividers. So over here, we're going to look for our divider style. So I'm just going to click here on this drop down. Right, so we're going to go with this divider right here. So I'm going to select it. And then I'm going to come over here to my divider color. And our color here is going to be an RGBA value. So I'm just going to drag the slider down a bit so I can get the brackets. And then I'm going to paste my value within the brackets like that. So you can see now it's changed here on the top. Next, we need to add our divider height. So I'm going to come over here and make sure that this is set at 1100. So I may need to paste it in here like that. So I think that's looking great. So now I can go ahead and save. And this is our final design. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we go live or we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching and see you soon.